social media can be a dangerous area to get involved. Most recently, a brand the most recent example I can think of, a brand called Motrin, which is a sort of anodyne equivalent over in the States, published a video which was aimed at a social media audience, talking about baby carriers, papooses and sort of slings, and how it was lovely for the baby, but my God, it makes my back hurt. And it was aimed squarely at the blogging mothers of America, the mummy bloggers. And it went down very poorly. In fact, it went down so poorly that a woman called Jessica Gottlieb started basically a campaign on Twitter which grew and swelled and turned into spoof videos, and Motrin withdrew the campaign. They'd spent a lot of money on it. It had gone down. They hadn't tested it, and it went down very badly. It was an example of arrogance, really, that they could do this as well, or from their point of view of their marketing team, that they could do this as well as the mummy bloggers, and they had a legitimate voice to get involved, without actually approaching the mummy bloggers in the first place. Sort of schoolboy error, really. I spoke to Jessica after this to see what she thought about it, and she said, well, there's only really one lesson, which is you don't have to get involved in social media. Now, I dispute that. I think that you have to get involved. I don't think you necessarily have to go in straight into this influence bit of it, but the thing they didn't do was they didn't listen to what was being said. They weren't responding to what was being said. They were jumping straight into the we are going to talk at you. It was a mistake to try and take a television model and apply it to social media. And that's that sort of thing is going to happen again and again, because as we find our feet, I'm afraid. Brands are anxious to get involved in this because they can see that social media is the most interesting thing right now, going to be increasingly the most interesting thing overall. And they are going to make mistakes as they do it. Some of the mistakes, or most of the mistakes, are just because the way we've set up our organizations, the way our businesses are set up, the way our products are set up, is all based around a mass market and mass media and mass production model that is really only 100 years old and is beginning to change. The idea of a mass audience, the idea of the masses, only began to exist at the beginning of the 20th century. And it comes into play alongside the mass media, and the mass media gave us the advertising channels that allowed us to build these mass products to the point that we now have a whole load of products which are supported only by the huge amounts of advertising money that goes in behind them. But this is at a time when people are watching less TV, and they're reading fewer newspapers, and the TV they're watching, they're deciding how they watch it, and they're ad avoiding. So social media is coming up for all of the people in marketing communications as being the most interesting thing, because it's clearly a vision of what we're going to be facing. So taking this mass media model and applying it to a new thing is bound to have problems. So another interesting-ish case study from a long time ago, Kryptonite made a bike lock which was impossible to break into, until it turned out on a cycling forum that in fact you could break into it using a Bic pen, a biro. And that was fine, and Kryptonite's initial response was, no, you can't, which is a perfectly good PR response for the 1990s or the early 1990s, but by the late 1990s and the early 2000s it was no longer a perfectly good response, because within about a day there was a video of somebody doing exactly this, breaking in, just before YouTube, breaking into this highly secure lock using a biro. And that happened on a Friday. And people at Kryptonite don't work over weekends. And so when they came in on Monday, the story that you can break into a kryptonite lock with a biro was now the big story. None of us really has a business where we are doing 24/7 monitoring. None of us has a business where we work to the news cycles of the internet and not the news cycles of the mass media. None of us knows how to deal with this yet, and we are going to have to change hugely if we're going to